Hello everyone, it's Brett Minchington. I can't wait to arrive in Lisbon for World Employer Branding Day shortly from the 12th to the 14th of October. It's another sold out event with 600 leaders coming in from over 50 countries. We have 45 of our partners coming together. It's the first time in 3.5 years that our global industry has come together in person. There's so much good energy around the market right now. This morning I wanted to have a chat with one of our speakers, Gilbert from Bayard in the US. They also work globally with clients. Matt's a really interesting guy. He's always looking for ways to innovate and grow our industry, which I think is absolutely fantastic. We book half an hour and we end up speaking an hour because there's always lots of things to talk about. Good morning, Matt. How are you today?
Thanks for the warm welcome, Brett. It's our first time at World Employer Branding Day, and we're looking forward to bringing our team over and meeting the global community. We've heard lots of great things about the event, and you've chosen a great city in Lisbon. I'm looking forward to sharing insights on some exciting things we're working on here at Bayard. The current talent landscape means we need to be innovating consistently, constantly, and I'll be sharing during my presentation at World Employer Branding Day some new concepts that we've been working on with our clients.
Terrific. Welcome, Matt. First question I've got for you today is, how can we bridge employer brand and EVP challenges in an era of disruption that we find ourselves in today?
Disruption is definitely the word of the day, perhaps of the era. Disruption is everywhere, not just the pandemic, the great resignation, the great reshuffle, social justice movements, people first movements, remote working, hybrid working. Disruption is probably here to stay. And when we think about connecting and building bridges between how we work, where we're finding meaning and purpose in work, and all of the things that go with that, we really think about creating value for people. So we want to think about disruption in different ways. Think of it as creative problem solving, be more flexible, more agile. So disruption doesn't freak us all out every time it happens because it's probably going to happen pretty often. We're seeing economic shifts and movements. We're seeing supply chain disruptions. We're seeing potential changes in economic outlooks and views from all of the things going on. Add in climate change and the impact that will have on the future of work and the types of jobs we have versus what we had 2, 5, 10 years ago, technology. So disruption doesn't have to be disruptive, not when we can think about it more in terms of how can we create value, solve problems creatively, build better ways for us to interact and connect and not just find purpose in our work, but also see it as a collaboration, that we're all in this together. In every company and organization within different countries and economies, we have a shared mutual interest in being able to enjoy what we do, be better at it, be more equitable, be more inclusive, think about the things that not only create value for our organizations, but also create value for our employees, and of course for our job seekers and candidates that are looking for more enhanced versions of value. And we all define value very differently. But even just by thinking about disruption, is maybe it's not disruptive. Maybe it can actually be quite positive if we can see it in the right frame of mind for that.
You mentioned the experience of value for candidates and employees alike. So how do you actually measure the experience of value?
We've found some interesting ways to look at how people experience value. And we experience value all the time. We're all natural born scorekeepers of our lives' events. We like things, we don't like things. We give it 1 star or 3 or 5. We're also doing this all the time in our job search, and we're doing it again as employees. We might not have it formally written down, but we are creating rankings and comparisons and giving things different senses or expectations of value. So we started thinking about how can we measure this, and what we found is that when we apply social science and start thinking about the comparisons that we're making, whether we're doing this internally or whether we're talking or sharing about it with friends, family, or colleagues, we are doing this process. We are comparing things all the time. Job search is itself a comparison. And when we become employees, we might not be comparing it all the time, every second. We are thinking about options and alternatives. Everyone is both an active and passive job seeker kind of at the same time. And when we look at how we can put value, whether it's most important, least important, give it 1 stars or 5 stars, we can start to then go through the domains of importance to people, financially, organizationally, professionally, and even culturally. And there are lots of categories within that. And we can then use that through surveying techniques and interviews and focus groups, do all kinds of interesting forms of testing. That's the social science part. What we get out of that is some really deep insights. We don't just know that people want compensation or benefits. Everyone wants to work with people whose company they enjoy. We want to understand the why of that, and also the how of that, how they're feeling that, how they're experiencing that. If we think about value proposition in more simple terms, EVP perhaps is what we take home at the end of the week. Employer brand is how we feel about that. When we can bring those two things together through this measurement process that we call EVX, it means employment value experience, because we want to compare, grade, score, rank that experience or value people have both as employees and also their aspirations and expectations of that as candidates. It's a much more powerful way of thinking about how we can then build more aligned and authentic messaging. It allows us to think about story in a more creative way than simply just testimonials of people talking about what they like or don't like. It allows us to really get deeper, a little bit of the mind reading of what's going on, the mind and heart reading at the same time, bringing those things together from employer's perspective, employee's perspective, candidate's perspective. And within those frames there, we're going to find overlaps, and we're going to find all different kinds of areas for innovation and out-of-the-box thinking that we can then apply that really make a big difference. And again, come back to what we were talking about before, it helps create value for people through the process of learning and search and exploring.
Okay, you mentioned it can make a big difference. So how do you use this data and insights to align and impact?
Yeah, I mean, it's such a great question because, okay, we've got all this great data. What do we do with this data? How do we build something more insightful and actionable? And some of the tools we all probably are familiar with, personas and things of that nature. What we found when we looked at personas is because, in our work, we are not just the research component, we're also the creative and execution, that we were missing some threads. Some dots weren't getting connected well. So we started looking at ways that we could think about the career area as opposed to the person. When we do personas, inadvertently we create bias. If we choose one ideal fictional character or avatar as our employee's model, we rule out all other ones. We create a background or an orientation or a gender or ethnicity. We don't need to do that anymore. We can eliminate bias by thinking about them from the role profile. And a role profile is thinking about the influences, the impact, the life experiences, some of the expectation of value coming into that. And we're looking at it across all the different career areas that any of the companies we're working with are having. So we can be one if we're being really laser focused, and then we can look at a broad spectrum of role profiles that would have that career influence. And this builds message architecture. So message architecture to us is if we think about careers from three different lenses, that why join an organization, why join that team, why join that department, and then ultimately, why this job or this role? Where is value created for me? What can I expect that to be over time as well? Because, all companies need people. We all need jobs, but do we need which company's job is something that we're thinking about very deeply. And it's kind of the paradox of employer brand is that we all need people and sometimes we all want the same people at the same time, which creates a competition, which creates a comparison. And we like to help our clients win in the comparison.
Okay, you talked about creating value for candidates. I'm interested. So how do you create value in a process that candidates don't usually enjoy going through? I'm interested in your thoughts around that.
So this is some pretty new thinking. The pandemic really opened our eyes to thinking about all kinds of long-standing challenges and problems differently because we had to start thinking, how do we message things that didn't exist 3 months before, 6 months before? The whole world overnight had to reinvent themselves as remote work for a period of time, and although that's changing and fluxing, we create value for people through the experience because we learn from tourism. Tourism and marketing of tourism and vacation marketing, they're really brilliant at being able to make a search process engaging. It's very enjoyable. We get excited. If we think about our client, if you will, as a country, how could we promote that, knowing that people could be planning a visit from anywhere around the world? They could have any background. They could be interested in the museum urban vacation in one trip, and they might be interested in the rural, scenic, small village hamlet another, and anywhere in between, from mountains to long drives to beaches, depending on what your company really has to offer. And it is the way that we use a combination of the insights from our role profiles, the value experience work, and we have to make it fun. There's a design thinking process in that. Design thinking to us means creative problem solving that looks at that challenge of most people don't really enjoy looking for a new opportunity. They find it difficult. They don't always like applying for jobs. It's inconsistent from company to company or platform to platform. We have to think in terms of tourism. And when we do that, we can really see some pretty amazing results from that. We actually make it fun for people through that process. It's pretty exciting stuff.
Matt, I'd love to have a look at some of those ideas in your thinking, and I'm sure the audience would as well. Now, how about we do this? I leave you alone to go and record some of the slides or some of the insights that you'll be sharing in Lisbon at World Employer Brand Day. Now, of course, you're not going to give everything away, but can you just leave us with a very high-level overview? I'm sure that would be of interest to the audience. That would be fantastic.
Absolutely not. It's top secret. Just kidding. Yeah, let me do that. Let me switch gears, and I'll put up some slides so that for context from that. Hello again. Now I'm going to walk you through some examples of that EVX model, the employment value experience, and what that means and looks like in practice. The value experience model is where we bring together stacks of strategies that we know we're going to need over the course of candidate journey, employee experience. We organize it this way so that we can focus on the lived experience of value. That's everything in this model and how we get to it. Central to the value experience process is looking at scorecards. We're natural-born scorekeepers of our lives and our careers. We give things 1 stars or 3 or 5. We think things are most important, least important, high value, low value, medium value, and they're constantly fluctuating based off of our experience, our tenure, early career, mid-career, professional, our life stages, moving, mobility. All of those things are constantly in motion and flux, and what we can do is keep a dashboard, an aggregate of those things moving forward, so that we know at any given time around these 4 core domains. They're universal. We all care about the financial attributes, the organization's reputation, its policies, of course the professional, what we're doing, what we're working on, how engaging or interesting that is to us, or the opportunity to grow within, and of course cultural as well, the friendships that we have, the teams, the bonds that we have, and what it feels like to be part of that community. They all matter to us, but they matter in different degrees and at different stages and different times. And if we can understand that and start to really build around that, we have much more effective messaging, not only for the front end, the job seeker candidate, but also we can use this to build smarter programs for experience and engagement internally and start to stave off some of those resignation challenges that we see across the world. Thanks, and I hope to see you in Lisbon.